You're listening to Thrive, where every week we have meaningful conversations with incredible women like you, packed with practical tips and sisterly advice to bring you from a life of simply surviving to thriving. It's personal development for the everyday gal who is done with coasting through her days, done with feeling like she's missing out on the deeper meaning of her own life, and done with mediocrity once and for all. Because it's not enough to simply survive. You deserve to thrive. I'm your host, Erica Gwynn, and I'm ready to thrive together. Here's today's episode. Hey friends, welcome back to Thrive. I'm so stoked to share this conversation with you with my friend Tanner. It's one of those chats that truly filled and fueled my own soul, so I hope it's good soul food for you today too. In much of life, the little things are the big things. And for most of life, we spend our days continuing on through all of the things, little and big alike. Today on Thrive, author, poet, and speaker Tanner Olson shares so much real, raw inspiration with us on continuing on and truly thriving through it all. We talk about walking a little slower and embracing a lesser pace. We build faith through the regular or more routine moments. And we lean into the ordinary to discover the extraordinary. Stay tuned through this episode. Drop it 5 stars if you like what you're listening to. And now welcome Tanner.
Hello, hello.
Hello. I'm so happy to have you here. And I'm glad we have like a mutual love of Shania Twain. This really feels like it bonds us from the start.
Yeah. Well, I'm just happy to be here. I'm excited to talk and I'm just, it's a good day. So it's a good day to be on a podcast too.
You know what? I love that so much. And I think we should also, I think we're going to just start it right now. We both petition to have concerts that are matinee for those of us who really want to be able to experience, to be a part of the fun, to see our favorite people sing their hearts out, but who just, don't really want to hang at like midnight anymore. We just need those earlier or like a brunch show or the matinee
Yes.
concert option for those of us who, I think that would just be, I think we're on to something.
I really think we are. I don't know who really wants to be awake out of their house after 9 o'clock. I just don't think we need to do that to each other, to
Yeah.
ourselves. It's just not fair.
Yeah.
It's not right. Our world is really about, self-care right now. And what about that is healthy? I don't think it is.
Exactly. I'm like, I don't want to miss out on these experiences, but I know my limit here. And like getting home at 1 a.m. after a long, no, I
Absolutely
can't do
not.
it with,
And who
yeah,
wants to drive in the dark? No one wants to drive in the dark.
no,
Why are we doing
no
this
one
to
does.
ourselves? Why? Yeah. I am such a fan of some artists that I would do almost anything for them, but do not make me have to stay out until midnight. Like let's meet
Yeah.
halfway. I'll
Let's
do
meet
anything for
halfway.
you. Just like move your concert up 4 hours. That's all.
That
That's
feels
all.
very fair. I feel like that feels fair. Okay, who's one artist that you would stick it out for though?
Oh, always and forever, a band called Newfound Glory.
Newfound Glory. Wait, that sounds kind of familiar.
They were really big in the early 2000s. They had a song called My Friends Over You. So it's like pop punk music, but they've been around for 20 something years and are still playing music. So
Oh,
yeah. Or
they
Dolly
probably have a
Parton.
cult
Let's just go with that.
following.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, Dolly
Yeah.
Parton for sure. She could do
Yeah.
no wrong. She could run the world.
She could do a concert at 3 a.m. and I would be up for that one. But
Yeah.
yeah. What about you? Is it Shania?
Well, no, because Shania was just around and I didn't make the trek out to go make it happen. I was almost willing to do it for the whole Taylor Swift Eras tour situation, but
Yeah.
that was more just that was like unreal. That was just out of this world. I really
Hmm.
had to ask myself some hard questions. Like, what are you really willing to do for a concert? Like,
Hmm.
is it give a kidney? Is it a
Yes.
left arm? Like,
Yes.
what's it gonna be here? And that was like a 3 hour, that was like a long thing. That was like, all right, if you're going, you're committing. This is
Hmm.
and then it couldn't happen. I did try to get tickets, but
Yeah.
I was not one of the fortunate chosen ones who got through on that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, regardless, I'm so happy you're here on Thrive. I first
Me too.
discovered you, gosh, a long time ago from a mutual friend of ours who literally was working on my team with me for a while. And she sent me your stuff forever ago, and she was like, I have this guy in mind. I think he would be so great for Thrive. Have you heard of Tanner? And I was like, let's see what Tanner's all about. And sure enough, you are such a breath of fresh air on Instagram and on social media. I feel like it's just so refreshing because it's so real and it's all really digestible, but some makes you think and some makes you laugh. And it
Mhm.
just feels different, which is what I love that. Like it just feels
Yeah.
like you're doing your own thing and it works and it resonates. So kudos.
Well, that's a very kind compliment. Yeah, I try to do what I only know how to do. I don't try to be somebody else, and I think the internet is one of those places where it's easy to fall into the trap of like, well, I have to be like this person or be like that person. It's like, well, yeah, but you should also just be yourself. Like that's very important. It's very important.
Highly underrated.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure. But you're a poet, you're an author, you're a speaker, but I'm going to pass it to you. Give us the lowdown on who you are and what you do and what makes you super jazzed to wake up every morning.
Coffee. I usually wake up for the coffee. But
Same.
yeah, I'm an author, a poet, a speaker, a podcaster. Like I'm all of the words, but really I'm just a writer. I'm somebody who I have a lot of thoughts, a lot of feelings, a lot of emotions. And so cut like writing is a very therapeutic thing for me. It's a way that I connect to my faith. It's a way that I share the questions that I'm wondering. It's the way that I kind of sift through all the things that are bouncing around between my head and my heart and my soul, and I try to put it into words that feels like a friend passing a note across the table to somebody else. Just something relatable, something honest, nothing too flashy. I was on a podcast recently and they were talking about my poetry to my face, and they were like, it's not great, but it's simple. But that's what makes it great. I was like, I don't know if that's a compliment. They're like, no, 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 it is. And so it's like, I'm not one of those poets who's trying to go over your head. I'm just someone who's trying to like write something and slide it across the table to you, if that makes sense.
Which also super cool because I see what you did there because all your Instagram posts have it's like a little
Yeah.
cutout of paper and that
Yeah.
connects the dots and that's really cool. No, I mean
Yeah.
it's simple, I feel like, in the sense of almost like structurally how it's simple because everything is like short, quippy sentences and just very, but I personally I love that because I don't think it's simple in terms of the thought behind any of it or what it brings to you by any means. It's just almost
Mhm.
like breaks down some of what we tend to overthink or overcomplicate. And it's like that's why it's refreshing and real because it's just a really good relatable reminder that like, hey,
Mhm.
you probably are over you're doing too much. You could bring it down a little bit more and like you might actually get more out of life that way,
Mhm.
which is something that a lot of us need to hit us on the head with. So, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, and I don't go onto like Instagram or Facebook to read a ton of words. Like I go on there because, well, first of all, like we're all slightly addicted to it. But I go on there because I know I'm gonna scroll, but I want to see something hopeful and helpful that reminds me that I'm okay and that I can keep going, but not something like super no offense, Hobby Lobby, but like Hobby Lobby cheesy. Like I still want it to be honest and real. You know what I'm saying? Like I want it to be that. But I also know like, and you know this too from putting things on the internet. Like we all have very short attention spans, and so when you're trying to reach somebody, you kind of have to do it in a way where it's like, hey, here's 10 words. I hope that these help you.
Yeah, a little more than live, laugh, love to stick on the wall.
Yeah, live, laugh, love, pass. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. But I literally read one of your things this morning, and I feel like you use metaphors really well or just real life experiences because they help connect you immediately to something that your reader has probably already experienced. I think the one I was reading this morning was Over Easy. I don't know when
Oh
you
yeah,
wrote that, but it was
yeah,
like but it made me bust up laughing by the end because it was like such a beautiful, for anyone who hasn't read it, it's like a poem basically like walking through making over easy eggs on a day and
yeah,
how we kind of put all this pressure on ourselves like, all right, we got to make the perfect eggs here, and if we make the perfect eggs it means we're going to have a perfect day, and
yeah.
god forbid you break the egg, well, just the day's done, it's over,
It's
it's
over.
ruined.
Back to bed. Here we
You
go.
might as well go back to bed, right? Like you failed. And it was just funny because I was getting exactly where you were going and the meaning behind it as I was reading, but then I bust up laughing at the end because like it literally ends with you broke the egg and you're like, well,
Yeah.
I guess I'm done. Lord have mercy. I'm in your
Yep.
mercy. Like we'll try again tomorrow, but like we're done today. Like,
Yep.
wow, that's just very real because that's how all of us would probably handle that situation.
Yep. Yeah. And like I broke the egg and my wife was like, you can just like do it again. I was like, no,
Yeah, there's like
like
that option.
no, if this is what I'm gonna write about later today, I'm gonna stick to it. Like that's yeah. Yeah. No, I just wrote that I don't know when you're releasing this, but earlier in June I wrote it. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Well, your latest book is called Continue.
Yeah.
So this is super cool. Cliff Notes gist is that we all continue. So we
Mhm.
continue through hard things, difficulties, what feels like hopeless moments. We continue through ordinary moments too. We continue through rush hour traffic and bedtime routines and grocery store runs. So, how do you make the most of the ordinary and really just lean into it? Because I'm of the belief that the ordinary can be the extraordinary if we know how to look at it and how to approach it and live it and embrace it. So, what does that look like for you?
I'm a big fan of the ordinary, and I think that's because that's kind of what my life is, and I think that's what a lot of people's lives are. Like I grew up thinking that I was don't laugh at this, but I thought I was going to be in the NBA. Like I was going to have this extraordinary life. It's going to be very different from everybody else. It's going to be the NBA. And then it's like, well, if that doesn't work out, then I'll be like an actor or something. But either way, like I'll be very well known and very famous, all this kind of stuff. And then as I got older, I realized that's not. Well, first of all, I'm not going to be in the NBA because I'm not tall enough or good enough. And so that wasn't going to work out. And then I was like, you know what? Why you can just have an ordinary life. An ordinary life is beautiful. It's meaningful. There's a lot there. Like just because you aren't this person or that person or doing this in your life does not mean that it does not matter because everything matters. And so lean into the simple, lean into the ordinary. Let that be something that is not only like worth celebrating, but worth sharing and inviting people into as well. I think there's a lot of good lies that are out there for us to believe and to latch onto. And I think one of the ones that I grew up believing was like, if I'm not well known, if I'm not making this incredibly large impact in the world, then my life does not matter. And that is so far from the truth. It's so far from the truth. So now I find purpose and joy in the small tasks throughout the day, like walking the dog, making the coffee for me and my wife, doing the dishes. Really, all the things that I don't necessarily want to do, like those are beautiful, simple, yet meaningful things that create a ripple effect across lives and generations. Um, yeah. Did that
Yeah.
answer the question? I kind of started talking. I kind of lost where I was
No,
going.
it did. I love that. I totally agree. I think about this a lot because now that I have, now that I'm a mom and all this too, I do morning affirmations with my 4-year-old and have for probably 2 years now. And we always end with, I can do anything. And
Mhm.
especially lately, it's almost got me thinking if I'm doing her a disservice with having that
Mm.
phrase in there. Because the truth of the matter is we could do a lot of things, but can we do anything and everything in life? Like, I mean, not to be the Debbie Downer, but like you said, like some things were just are not our calling and not
Yeah.
our thing. Like right off the bat, and I look at her and she it probably couldn't be like a NASA scientist or something because or whatever the qualifications are, because I think for some of them you need like perfect vision or whatever. And she's had eye
Yeah.
surgeries already. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I look at that and I'm like, well, dang, I might already be setting her up for like a disappointment down the road because she's like, I could do anything. And I'm like, yeah, girl, you go, you totally can. And then I always just think to myself, well, like, but but maybe she's not meant to do everything in life. And maybe
Exactly.
the thing
Yeah.
and like you said, like I too thought I would be a Broadway performer. And like, do I
Mhm.
have the chops for that? Absolutely not. Was not gonna be
Yeah.
like I could sing, but like not like that. That was not my calling. So it's like sometimes we almost set ourselves up for unnecessary disappointment by associating these like big grandiose dreams as the thing to strive for, and then we
Yeah.
almost minimize roles that are just as beautiful, just as meaningful, just as purpose filled. And we use the
Mhm.
word just with it. And I hear this all
Yeah.
the time where people will be like, well, I'm just a mom. I just run my little online business. It's just a little hobby. I'm just a barista. And the word
Yeah.
just like
So
automatically makes
frustrating.
you small.
Mhm.
Just
Yep.
shake everyone and be like, it's not just like it's still really important. And you still have so much power and potential to totally
Yeah.
change the lives of the people around you. And as dramatic as that sounds, it's just true. Like think of all the times a barista like made or broke your day, or like some random person you ran into ended up being like the thing that set you
Mhm.
off or that totally set you off in a positive direction for the rest of the day. Like, oh,
Yeah.
that's a tangent, but that's like a perfect example of it's ordinary, but it is extraordinary because there's so
Yeah.
much potential in it.
You're never just something.
Yeah.
You were never just something. And I think like you're saying, if you when we begin to use that word, it begins to minimize not only like what we do, but who we are as well. And that's just not helpful for us, for ourselves, or for the people around us either. I have been just a barista. I have been just a lot of things. And I think had I gotten rid of that word while I was doing those jobs would have been so much more fulfilling, and I would have been more present for the people around me. But I think it kind of gets back to like we're all pretty good at the comparison game. Well,
Yeah.
I'm not like this person, or I'm not where this person is. I could be better, or life doesn't go the way that you think it is, and so you're in this one place, but you're not where you really want to be. And sometimes I think about it like I'm a terrible runner, absolutely awful at running. But and usually when I'm running and you go and you pass somebody else who's running, they have no idea how long you've been running, where you started, what your pace is, all this kind of stuff. And so when I try to run by somebody, I try to like make it look like I'm doing okay, even though I'm not. And I think we can just like stop doing that, right? Like just kind of own what we're going through, where we're at. Like you don't have to put on this like brave face. You can just be like, hey, this is where I'm at in life. This is where I'm at in the run. And I'm working on it. I'm getting better. And I think sometimes we want to try to put on a brave face or be like, no, no, like I'm just not there yet, or I'm just this or I'm just that. You're never just something. Just be what you are and live into that.
Well, and social media makes that all the harder, all the worse,
Social,
because
yeah,
it's just like the biggest iceberg where we're judging everybody based off of what we see on the surface of a news feed or of their highlight reel.
yep,
And not even like we all know that there's an iceberg beneath the surface of like years of work or filters or lies or a very highly curated whatever. And we
hmm,
still will have that itch to compare ourselves or to be like, oh, but so and so has this or whatever, and start turning it
yep,
inward on ourselves and believing that lie. And it's
hmm,
like, oh man, we know that it's a lie. And we're still like, okay, yeah, it must be real because I saw it on Facebook. So that sounds about right.
yeah. The truth teller, Facebook itself.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
exactly.
is. And I think we sometimes just forget, like, hey, it's hard to be a human being. Like it's a really hard thing, in the way that life goes. It goes different for each of us. And so how can we kind of be where we are and see the good that is happening around us and then kind of live into that? And I think a lot of times I want to fight against that. I want to keep working or keep trying or keep building or keep creating, but there's this beautiful thing that I'm learning. It's called rest. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's
Ugh,
really hard to do for a lot of people, but like to just
amen.
kind of like rest and be. And because when you rest, then you're able to see how good the things are around you, how it's
Yeah.
not all bad, it's not all terrible. Like you can just kind of be in it and give thanks to God that this is the life you have, and the life that you have is not that bad. It's actually
Yeah.
good. It's
It's
actually
actually
pretty good.
great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if concerts start at 8 p.m., it's still pretty good.
Yeah. It'll still be a fun time. I love that you mentioned that too, because I'd love to extend that kind of into our faith lives as Christians, because those
Hmm.
ordinary moments of faith and like the little rituals, little routines, little prayers that slowly but surely build our faith up stronger, build it up better. Because I think sometimes we have these massive come to Jesus moments or revelations or these life changing experiences that we're like, oh, this was my testimony. This made my faith. This made changed my life, whatever. But I think sometimes for probably a lot of us, most of our lives are just spent in existence with him and learning to kind of abide and be obedient or be diligent and kind of just continue continue onward in what feels like a very ordinary thing, and we can kind of find ourselves thinking like, am I doing this right? Like, God, are you there? Hello? Like, please don't forget me. XOXO, it's me. Like, hello, here I am. So what does that kind of look like for you in terms of living faithfully and just kind of embracing the ordinary in that process too, where we might otherwise be tempted to be kind of discouraged or kind of questioning like, all right, is there more? Is it bigger? Am I doing something wrong? What's the deal?
It sounds like you have a pretty loud head like I do, where there's a lot of like
Oh, all the time.
questions, like negativity, it's fighting lies, it's trying to remember the truth. And I think most of my day, it feels like it's spent going back to the things that I know to be true. The things like God is with me,
Yeah.
God is for me, God loves me, I am forgiven, grace is real, hope is real, mercy is new every morning. It's like all of these really, really beautiful things that are get washed away with the loud thoughts or what's happening in the world or comparison or just this, just that, just whatever. And so for me, it's like taking these small moments throughout the day where it's like, all right, I'm not gonna look at my phone for a little while. I'm just gonna sit and be and breathe. It's making time to go on a walk and talk out loud to God, to pray. It's turning off the music in the car to pray out loud. It's seeking the silence and reading scripture and doing all the things that I know are healthy and doing them because they are healthy and they matter. I'm really good at eating candy. I am not the best at eating vegetables. And I think sometimes when it comes down to walking with God, we get to make these important decisions where it's like, I'm not going to do this because that's not helpful. I'm going to do this because this is good. And spending time with the Lord is a really, really good thing. But we live in a world that is just full of wonderful distractions, just wonderful distractions. But if we can kind of escape the distractions and spend time with the one who calls us to him, it doesn't get much better than that. And that's very, I don't know, it feels very ordinary to me. It feels very simple
Yeah.
of saying I'm not gonna spend my time here, but I'm gonna spend it over here where I can sit and be and give thanks to the one who gave me the life that I'm wrestling with. Because what a beautiful thing it is to wrestle with the life that we've been given, because that means that we have life.
Well, and I think we also live in a world that tells us what you're feeling is good. If it feels good, that means that it's good and that's what you should lean into.
Mhm.
When, like you said, it's kind of like if you simplify it a little bit, it really brings it down to the core of like, okay, it might feel good in the moment, but that really doesn't necessarily mean that it is by its very nature good. And
Yeah.
we're like so confused on that as a society in so many ways sometimes that it always makes me laugh. I'm like, we all know that like eating candy feels good in the moment. And if you
Oh,
eat
I
too
love it.
much of it, or if like, even if
Hmm.
it's not too much, it's not necessarily just good by itself,
Yeah.
point blank, period. Like,
Yeah.
we know what artificial coloring does now, folks. Like,
Yeah.
it's not great. So it also reminds me, I know we have similar feelings on this because you wrote a poem called You're Not Your Feelings.
Yeah.
And that I read that and I was like, dang, it hits home because we think the same on this. I'm gonna share part of it because
Oh,
I
yeah.
read this and I was like, oh, so good. But you said depression has selective hearing, but I've learned how to get through to it. We all handle what handles us differently, and I knew what I needed to do. Lean in. You cannot outrun how you feel. Believe me, I've tried. You're not faster than your feelings. I've learned that I cannot sit at home with the pain. I have to take it on an adventure. And then later on, you say, on days like this, you have to be careful what voices you listen to. The combination of fog and darkness will tell you things that are not true. I'm like, oh, all of that is just so good because if you really break it down, I think we've all experienced moments like that where we're like in this situation and clearly feeling a certain way. And you kind of have the choice to make of do I lean into this and I feel it and I become it? Or do I lean into this and feel it, process it, move away from it? Like just different options that you can do once you are feeling something. And it's like sometimes people don't even take that as an opportunity to do something with it. Sometimes people just feel it and then like let their, let their fight or flight system go on override and not even think consciously of what they're doing with it next. But I would love to hear your thoughts on this if you have more more to add on it. But I read that and I was just like, yes, I love that you consciously say, okay, I'm going to lean into this feeling, but then I am also simultaneously aware that
Mhm,
this feeling is not a fact and that this feeling does not necessarily have power over me. And that even
mhm.
though I feel it and it's real, that doesn't mean that that has to be like the decision maker in my life or the determining factor of what comes next for me.
Right, and the feelings, they don't erase or change what is already true. And I
Yeah.
think sometimes I think, "Oh, no." Perhaps sometimes I feel that way because I'm like, "Oh, no, the truth is under attack," and it's not. I'm just having a rough day. I wrote that I woke up one morning and I just felt, I don't know, I felt far from good, felt far from good. And it happens every now and again. And so I was like, okay, well, I know I need to do so. Got in the car and I drove into town. And so I went and I got a donut. If you read the whole post, I got a donut. I got a chocolate frosting with sprinkles on it. So
It
good.
looked
So
great.
good.
The
It
picture
was
looked so
fantastic.
good.
Amazing. But I was like, I know this is what's gonna this isn't I can't do this every single day. I can't go have a donut every single day. But I can't do that on some days when I have work or meetings or this or that, the other thing. But that was one of those days where everything lined up where it was like, all right, now I can go and do this thing. And I think sometimes we forget to do the things that we know we need to do because it's healthy and good for us. Did I just say eating a donut was healthy? I definitely just did. But I think like in that moment, I was like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave where I'm at, change my scenery, go get something that is good, and then go and pray somewhere. Like I needed to go and get away and process everything that was, and so that I could see, yeah, things are good. And having something ordinary like a donut just kind of reminds me of that. I don't know, it's just like learning to shift your focus on from what do I need to what is the good that is already in my life. Because it's there. It is already there. And I think sometimes we just get so distracted or overwhelmed that we just can't see that. And so instead of like pulling back and running away, we need to lean into it. Just lean in. And that is not fun work. Leaning in is not fun work, but it matters. It really matters.
It does. What helps you lean into it? Because I know that probably is like the sticking point for a lot of people where they're like, listen, sounds cool, but also sounds really freaking hard or sounds confusing. And especially when we're on an emotional overload for something, making those clear headed, intentional decisions can be that much more difficult. So, do you have kind of like a process that works for you or any specific tips or tricks for leaning in when it's kind of like the not fun moments to do that?
Yeah, and it depends on your situation and what you're in, or like the time that you have. Because sometimes you wake up and you're feeling the way that I was feeling, and it's like, well, I've got a meeting in an hour. What can I do? And it's like, okay, well, what if we don't do the things that we know gets in the way of leaning in? For me, that is looking at my phone or getting near a screen. Like I need to just kind of be away. I need to go walk. I need to go stretch. I need to go pray. I need to go drink coffee in silence and just speak to God like he's with me because he is with me. And I don't know. I think that we're really good at giving ourselves over to the hands of distractions that pull us away and say, hey, yeah, you're feeling like this. Let's go deeper into that feeling. A long time ago, a friend told me, he's like, hey, when you think about feelings, think about it like you're in a car. You don't let feelings in the driver's seat, and you don't put feelings in the trunk. You put feelings in the car, or you can still hear them and listen to them, but you don't give them control. And so when I feel like
Ooh.
my feelings are taking over, it's like, what do I need to get back to? So I remind myself of the things that I know to be true. And now for me, I've been doing this for so long because it's just like it's what I write about all the time. So I'm reminding myself of, who does God say that I am? Well, I know that I'm loved and that I am forgiven and that I am seen and that I am chosen. And then it always gets down to the point of everything may not be okay right now, but everything is going to be okay. And so there's this measure of keep going, of continue, endure, but you endure um, with the truth that you're not in it by yourself, and that what you are feeling does not determine your worth. It's just what's going on inside of you. So lean in, process it, and don't forget that the truth remains.
Yeah. For sure. You also mentioned rest a little bit earlier, which
Yeah.
relevant, because you also wrote a poetry anthology called Walk a Little Slower.
Yeah.
So I know for me, I've kind of always been on hyperspeed. I've been
Mhm.
like a doer, a go, go, go girl for literally my entire life. So slowing down has often had kind of like a negative connotation to it. Like I wasn't being productive or wasn't like maximizing the moment or making the most of the day, like can't slow down,
Yeah.
must keep going. But through, therapy and
Mhm.
adulting, thankfully, I've learned to kind of start disconnecting those thoughts because slowing down can obviously be a very good thing, a great thing,
Yeah. Mhm.
and can make room for more. So, what does it kind of look like for you to walk a little slower and doing that intentionally? Because I feel like that's for me, it's like there's that constant tension of like
Mhm.
your gut is like, go push, and you have to actually consciously say, no, slow down. And it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know if everybody's brain works that way or if there's just a select few of us that are like the ones where
Yeah.
breaking is an active, like, okay, there's your break, use it. Like you got to keep using it.
Yeah.
You got multiple pedals.
I wrote that book mostly for myself because I needed to hear
Cool.
what was in it, right? And
Yeah.
then when I released it, it was like a lot of people were like, "Oh, I need to hear that too." And the reason why I named it "Walk a Little Slower" was because like I knew I'm gonna see this title for the rest of my life, and I always need that reminder. Just like I like the book Continue. I know I'm gonna need that reminder as well because I'm gonna see these books every single day, probably for the rest of my life. But it's just that reminder. And so for me, walk a little slower. It's like, hey man, like you are not what you do. You are
Yeah.
not what you do. You can enjoy the life that you've been given. You can slow down. Like what you're doing today, you can get back to it tomorrow. It will be waiting for you. So I don't know. I'm an Enneagram 3, and so a lot of
Same.
that is like I figured, but it's like you are your work. Like that is what defines you, and like that's how I want to be known. And so I have to fight against that as well, and just kind of lean into the things again. Like I feel like I'm a broken record, but it's like leaning into the things that are true. Like this is who God says that I am, and it's not because I'm a writer or a poet or a podcaster or an author. It's not, but like living out of my identity helps me create these things, helps me put words down on paper. And guess what? Your identity is not changing. It's going to be there again for you tomorrow. So when you wake up, like walk a little slower, write words of hope, and just kind of live out that. Um, so yeah, yes, I figured you were an Enneagram 3 though. So we're walking a little slower together, which is extremely painful. It's extremely painful, but it is so important. And it is a
Yeah.
better way of living.
Truly. I have a sticky note on my desktop in front of my face that says less but better. And I have
Hmm.
had another one last year. It said less is more. And
Yep.
it's like a conscious challenge because so much messaging we see is always like, you're made for more, 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 more. And I'm like, you know what? Sometimes you need the reminder. Sometimes you are the more person. And
Hmm.
sometimes you need the reminder that like
Yeah.
less is not less than. It's not, doesn't
Mhm.
make you less. It just, you need the reminder to do less or to run less or
Yeah,
just to like that could actually be a hindrance if you're pushing constantly for more. And sometimes you just got to step back and be like, you know what? Less can be good.
it is. Less is really good. It is really good,
Yeah.
and it changes just kind of how you navigate your life. And like I don't know, when I walk into a room and it's super cluttered, I can't think straight. And I think the
Yep.
same is true when my day has so much going on through it. It's hard for me to think straight. It's hard for me to enjoy it. It's hard for me to be present. And so yeah, like you said, like less does not mean less than, but less kind of allows you to enjoy more.
Amen to that. Well, Tanner, in getting things wrapped up, I want to ask you something we ask everybody to end the show, which is what does thrive mean to you? And how do you strive to thrive in your everyday life?
Oh, that's a great question. What does thrive mean to me? I think, I mean, based on the whole conversation that we just had, I think to thrive means to slow down and to lean in and to hold fast to what is good. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. And so day after day, I think that looks like kind of fleeing from distractions and spending time with the ones that I love and clinging to what is true. and writing
Yeah.
poetry.
Can't forget that. I love that. Tell everybody where they can find you online to connect with you more, and also, of course, to grab copies of your multiple books.
Ooh, yes. You can go to writtentospeak.com, or you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Written to Speak, Facebook. I don't do TikTok. That was one of those things where I was like, this is too much. I can't do it. I'm out. And my mind, my heart, my body does not need TikTok in it. So I'm just gonna say no to that guy. Yeah. Yeah.
Wait, before you go, make sure you're subscribed to never miss an episode of Thrive. Drop 5 stars on your way out if you like what you just listened to, and come join the party on Instagram at thrive.podcast to stay inspired and thriving all week long. Thanks for tuning in. It's your time to thrive.